Cool. That's it.
Yay.
All that trouble
We
for like
did it.
15 seconds.
Yay.
Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to undergroundwellness.com. We have a very, very special guest in the house today. We have Dr. Kelly Austin. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean.
Dr. Kelly was on this show, on the radio show a few weeks ago, and we talked about Female Athlete Triad Syndrome, a very important topic and something that is very relevant to me because I was a personal trainer for 8 years. And I remember working with my female clients, they would always be really, I don't want to say jealous, but they would always want the bodies of the women who like worked out 2 hours a day and they had like chiseled abs and they were just all ripped up with like very, very little body fat. And that's not always something to be envious of for many reasons. When I started doing functional diagnostic nutrition work, I worked with a lot of fitness competitors, fitness models, and they had all kinds of problems. Now, I'm not saying that every single fitness competitor out there has these problems, but some do. And we're gonna make them more aware of what's going on and you more aware of what's going on. So Female Athlete Triad Syndrome, Dr. Austin, who's a naturopathic doctor, by the way, what exactly is it?
The triad basically composes of 3 separate issues. The first issue we look at is some sort of disordered eating. The second component we're looking at is amenorrhea, so having an irregular period from the disordered eating. And the third thing we look at is osteoporosis or osteopenia, so losing bone mass from having low estrogen from the disordered eating. So you can see how it really all, basically it's a domino effect.
I want to go through each of these. Let's talk about disordered eating first.
Okay.
Is this a full-on eating disorder? Is this not just getting in enough nutrients or calories for the activity that they're doing?
Yeah, it's usually because the person's not taking in enough calories for the amount of exercise that they're doing. So the person's over-exercising, having tons of exercise, and over-exercise isn't very much. A lot of people think it might be running a marathon or working out for 3 or 4 hours a day. But for a woman's body, exercise is very different than a man's body. So for a woman's body, over-exercising is working out maybe 3 or 4 times a week for an hour. So it's doing 4 spin classes every week. So over-exercising has a very different basically definition than what we are really used to. So when you exercise at those levels, you don't take in enough calories. Your body thinks it's in some sort of starvation mode and it starts to become a stress response for the body. And at that point, the body starts to shut down other things. And then that's how we get into the low estrogen concerns.
And then yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So you see these women at the gym, and again, I'm not bashing them at all by any means. I don't want to get a bunch of email from figure models like, why are you bashing me in that video? But they're not getting enough calories in. They're doing all this activity. They're getting really like ripped up, like super duper 6-pack, 8-pack abs. Now, would you say that that's unhealthy?
For a woman's body, it tends to be, because women tend to need a little bit more body fat than men. So if you have the low body fat, then fertility and all those other issues become a concern. I remember on the show I asked you about a specific body fat that would be too low. And you didn't really give me an answer. You said that when you lose your menstruation, that's a really good sign. What's going on with that amenorrhea deal? As soon as you start to lose your menstruation, you usually know that your estrogen levels are too low. So, and it can be just missing 1 cycle, but the actual definition when we look at the female triad syndrome is actually missing about three menstrual cycles in a row. So that's about 90 days without any menstruation equals a concern with the amenorrhea in this situation. So when you have amenorrhea and you have low estrogen, then at that point, that's when the diagnosis of, we start to look at the diagnosis of female triad syndrome.
What are some of the symptoms that a woman would have if she had low estrogen?
If she had low estrogen, she would notice her train of thought would be a little bit more off, lack of focus and concentration. You would get a little bit more things like vaginal dryness seems to be a concern, depression, anxiety. So a lot of mood disorders occur when you have low estrogen, and then obviously osteoporosis tends to be one of the major concerns too.
Low estrogen, is this just an overexercise issue, or are there other reasons why a woman would have low estrogen?
A woman can have low estrogen because of any sort of stressor in the body. So that could be from over-exercising, not taking in enough nutrients for the amount of exercise she's doing. And a stressor for the body can also be not enough sleep. It could be stressors that she's dealing with at home, at work. So any sort of stressors can cause a woman to have low estrogen, because we start looking at the effect that the estrogen has being low because of the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus should tell the pituitary to tell the ovaries to make the estrogen and the progesterone. And when you're under a lot of stress, all those feedback loops are really messed up. And when that happens, the hypothalamus doesn't tell the pituitary to tell the ovaries to make the appropriate amount of estrogen and progesterone.
Got some poor communication going on within the body, right? Now, I'm sure our audience has seen this before. You work out at the gym, there's a girl there who's always on the treadmill, and at some point, she walks in the gym with a boot on. She's got crutches, or she's got like a walking cast. What's going on with that as far as the bones are concerned?
Right. Because of the lack of estrogen in the woman's body, she's more prone to osteoporosis or osteopenia. So osteopenia is just when bone loss just starts to occur, whereas osteoporosis is when you really have lost a lot of bone already at that point. So usually for young women, it's osteopenia. And so their bones are weak. It's not that they've lost a tremendous amount of bone yet. So when the bone is weak, she would be more prone to stress fractures.
Gotcha.
So when she has a stress fracture, sometimes people don't even know they have a stress fracture. They'll still continue to work out on it for so long, and wouldn't even phase them to go check this out. They'll just have a little bit of pain, and they still push through it.
Is that a pretty strong sign you've got something going on when you get a stress fracture?
Yes. At that point, they've probably already have had low estrogen for several years.
Let's go back to the amenorrhea, and I asked you this on the radio show. Do you ever find women who are like happy that they're not getting their period?
Right, yes. And that's so common. So many girls just think that it's a free ticket, basically, because then they don't get PMS or cramps or have problems with basically it causing some sort of concern with their disruption of their routine having it. But really, it's a normal part of life. And if women don't get a menstrual cycle, then at that point, you just basically, you're aging yourself. So having a menstrual cycle prevents you against having uterine cancer. It's so important for ensuring that you are fertile, which is
that would be infertility, right? You're not having your period, you're infertile. You don't want to be infertile, guys.
No.
I don't care what your muscles look like and how your abs look. You want to have babies. Babies are really important. Be reproductive. Diagnosis. How is a woman diagnosed with this?
When a patient comes in to see me, I do a hopeful medical history. So for me, it's quite easy to find this diagnosis because I go through people's nutritional meal plans and I see how many calories they're eating right away. And it's always the people who tend to have very lean things. So they'll say, I eat my chicken breast, I eat my salad, and they don't have a lot of fats in their diet. And that seems to be a problem. So I can pinpoint it right away. So I already know, red flag. I better look at further things. And then I say to them, well, what are you exercising? So it's basically just asking them and having a nice rapport with them to find out what exactly is going on. And then once they tell me about their exercise, I start talking to them about the chronic exercise and what they're doing. And then at that point, I ask them, have you ever broken a bone? And so many young girls say, yeah, I've broken like really strong bones, like a femur, or they've broken a toe. Yeah, and I'm thinking, my goodness, to break something that strong, they must have been really over-exercising and really not taking in the adequate nutrition.
Yeah, and I can only imagine how their bones are going to be later on in life.
Exactly.
That's not a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's not. In terms of treatment, there's always different forms of thinking or different ways of thinking on things. There's the medical approach and then there's the more naturopathic approach. What's the difference between the two?
Right. A medical doctor would tend to treat it more in terms of the birth control pills. They would give them the estrogen and progesterone supplementation that they need in terms of synthetic hormones. Naturopathic doctors would tend to use more bioidentical hormones. So we would use estrogen, progesterone, and maybe even some testosterone cream. And it would depend on blood work. So whatever their blood work comes back as, and we do full panels for patients. So we look at FSH, estradiol, progesterone, free testosterone. So we do everything. And then at that point, we can basically tell them what the dose that they need to be on is, and how often they need to take it, and how long they'll need to take something like this to actually do better with it. And the other thing that we do is we can catch these people much faster than the average medical doctor, because we're doing so much questionnaires with people, nutrition, exercise, where a lot of doctors tend to be really busy, that they don't have the time to really go into detail with them with their nutrition and their exercise, whereas we spend at least an hour with every patient, so we can really find out everything involved in what they're doing, and really put together a nice protocol for treatment. So
that's cool.
Vitamin D, all those things to build bone are really important.
You want a doctor who's going to spend time with you and know who you are and what you're going through, and put together a protocol that's right for them.
Right.
You know, based on their lifestyle and their blood work and whatnot. That's what you do.
Exactly.
Do you do phone consulting or anything like that?
Definitely. I deal with a lot of people who are out of state, and I'm from Canada, so I still have a lot of patients from Canada, and a lot of patients who just are too busy. They live in San Diego, but they just, in the middle of their day, they can't drive out to see me, so no problem. We just call them on the phone, and we go through everything that way.
You do Skype as well? You ever do Skype?
Yeah, I love Skype. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, especially working with clients. You got that face-to-face thing going on. Your website is the letter N, as in Naturopathic Health.ca, nhealth.ca. And one more thing for our audience who's in San Diego, of course, the healthy audience in San Diego who shops at the good stores like Sprouts and Whole Foods and whatnot, they probably know you from Sprouts because you do the B12 shots, right? Talk to us about B12 and why that's beneficial for us.
Okay. Vitamin B12 is responsible for many pathways of the body, so it's helpful for focus, concentration, memory, very good for anxiety, stress, and depression. And when we're under a lot of stress, vitamin B12 gets depleted out of our bodies very quickly. So it's a good thing to make sure that if you're under a lot of stress, you just take a B12 shot. We also have B6 shots, which are also really good for stress relief as well.
B6 shots, huh? I haven't heard of that before.
Yeah, and a MIC shot. MIC is your inositol and choline, which works on the hypothalamus, which I mentioned, that helps with the estrogen.
Yeah, you did talk about that with
all
the hormone communication stuff.
You got it.
Gotcha. Dr. Kelly Austin, again, the website is nhealth.ca. We appreciate you coming by the Underground Wellness headquarters.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean.
Big high five.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. We're out of here, guys. Peace.